Caution Tape. I'm your host, CrashLit. It's another Monday rundown here. Like I said, you can expect these every week going forward. And here we go, getting into this week, everything that happened last week and everything coming up this week for all things USC. Before we get into it, be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcast, whether it's just the audio version or on my YouTube. And then also be sure to leave a review, like, comment, just tell me like what you like about it, what you want to see me do differently. I'm really receptive to feedback in that regard. And with that, let's get into football as USC had a massive win over Missouri State. I guess you could say they gave them a proper welcome into the FBS with a 73-13 walloping on Saturday. It's the most points scored by a USC team since 1930. And yeah, it's pretty empty by the end of the game, and people were texting like, "Wait, why is it so empty?" And I had to explain, we're playing Missouri State. It's literally their first game in the FBS. So, Jade Mayava went 15 for 18, had 295 passing yards, two passing touchdowns, and also rushed for a touchdown. And Hassan Longstreet also had an impressive game. Also went 9 for 9, passed for 69 yards, had a passing touchdown, and also two rushing touchdowns for his efforts. And USC scored on 6 of 7 red zone appearances. And for his efforts, Jane Mayava was named the Big Ten Offensive Player of the Week, which I think he absolutely deserved. He absolutely did a great job out there. I was really impressed. Obviously, Missouri State uh, is not the level of competition USC will see once they get into Big Ten play. But just seeing him start the season like that was just really, I think, should give a lot of confidence to fans who are some I think were pretty nervous about how he would look, especially with Hassan Longstreet waiting in the wings. And fans did also get to see Longstreet play. As I said, and he played the entire second half. And I was impressed with him, especially with how he ran. And it pretty much, the big conclusion I drew with Longstreet is that if Mayava falters at any point during this year, Lincoln Riley has a very, I think, reliable backup waiting in the wings for this to take over this USC offense. And so, I think for that reason, I think Lincoln Riley did a great job getting Longstreet. Credit to him and Luke Heward for getting Longstreet to flip from Texas A&M following Julian Lewis's decommitment. But I think just overall it just shows that USC's got two really reliable options at quarterback, and I'm really excited to see what Mayava does. Other parts of the team that impressed me was the run game. I mean, I think you saw both Wayman Jordan and Eli Sanders. They had 5 carries each, as did Brian Jackson. Jordan had a rushing touchdown. Then Eli Sanders also had a receiving touchdown. Had one reception for 73 yards. But really just showed that this running room is going to be really impressive. Even Walk-on King Miller had 4 carries and for 80 yards and scored a touchdown. So it just shows that Lincoln Riley wasn't kidding around when he said that this was the deepest, one of the best back rooms he's had since he got to USC. And I think we're seeing that play out now. So I think just it was great to see so many guys get to play and score. So for that reason, I was just really excited with how the game went and just how USC was able to just get so many guys opportunities to see the field. I was also really impressed with the defense as well, especially just how everyone played and just what they did. So just yeah, like especially yeah, with D'Anton Lynn being back, I think USC can really just continue to do well. And I think yeah, you saw Cameron Fountain, Bishop Fitzgerald really also do a great job on defense there. And I think that was just shows that just how much this defense is continuing to improve with D'Anton Lynn now at the helm. And then before I move on to previewing next week, I did want to come back to the receiver room actually, and you just saw USC had Mekhi Lemon go off on this game, led the team with 90, had 7 receptions for 90 yards, And also, yeah, Lake McCree at tight end had 2 receptions for 72 yards, scored a touchdown. Jacoby Lane 3 receptions for 33 yards. So I think you're just seeing there's a lot of depth there and just the options USC has and just seeing what they're capable of. I think we'll get to see more of that. Even like Prince Strong, I think could be a worthy wide receiver 3 for this team. So I'm really impressed with just the depth all around on this team. And I think we probably won't get to see really a true test for this team until they take on Michigan State on September 20th. But even then, I still think that it's still these first these next 2 games, both with Georgia Southern on Saturday and Purdue on September 13th, are going to be two more opportunities for a lot of guys to see the play and for this coaching staff to really just see the talent that they have this year. And speaking of Georgia Southern, let's move on to them. So Georgia Southern is 0-1 on the year. They will go to the Coliseum on this Saturday at 4:30. The game you can watch on Fox Sports 1. And the big headline there is it is the return of Clay Helton, former USC head coach, who's fired my freshman year on for my second ever football game I went to. It was incidentally the first ever game I wore caution tape to. So for those of you wondering, I think it's yeah, definitely a it'll be definitely kind of an interesting game considering that for me, but even still, just the return of Clay Helton, and I think he's gonna probably get booed, even though I think obviously I've heard he's a great guy, just wasn't the right guy for SC, but I'm pretty sure fans are gonna boo him anyways. But yeah, so the Eagles absolutely got killed by Fresno State last week in Fresno, so that puts them at 0-1. And yeah, so the Eagles are looking really get are this is probably another easy win for USC, but I'm still definitely interested to see just what USC is able to do, and I'm hoping to see Mayava continue to prove he is like the guy at quarterback, but I'm also excited to see more of Hassan Longstreet after, like I said, he proved he can definitely lead the offense should Mayava falter, which I don't think that's going to happen after how I saw Mayava play. But as the competition gets tougher, especially after Michigan State, yeah, Michigan State, Illinois, Michigan, those next 3 games could get tough. So it's definitely nice to see the depth at quarterback as well as everywhere else. So definitely excited for that game on Thursday or on Saturday, pardon me. The other news off the field was last week USC had USC did offer a has made an offer that a multi-year extension of their annual rivalry with Notre Dame. And it sounds like Jennifer Cohen's is hoping that it'll be passed, but Notre Dame wants a long-term deal. And it seems like the kind of sticking points for USC are when they play and for how long, because USC wants the flexibility, especially because it seems like now the automatic qualifier model that the Big Ten pushed for doesn't seem to be happening ever since the SEC's preferred the 5 automatic qualifiers and 11 at-large picks, whereas the Big Ten preferred four, automatic, 4 automatic qualifiers for itself and the SEC, 2 for the Big Ten and ACC, 1 for the group of 6, and the remaining 3 to be at-larges. So that seems off the table. USC's trying to, I think, figure out that. But still, I think long term, even with that model, I think it actually does end up devaluing, I think, the those non-conference matchups. So even if USC were to then be comfortable doing a long-term series, I think it would devalue the series because those non-conference games don't really then matter. So what's the point of playing them? I think that's what would happen long term. So I don't think it's good for the game of college football. But still, I just think, especially after now having interviewed Petros Papadakis, who's been outspoken about this since May when he went on John Canzano's Bald Faced Truth radio show, and especially when I interviewed him too, it's just like you gotta. It's just a game that just means everything to the fan base, and I think you're just seeing a lot of uproar about it. And Lincoln Riley had an opportunity to put this issue to bed and probably try to push USC to maybe get an extension done. And like he said, he was saying, yeah, I want to play the game, and he was saying that's why he came here. But then he was saying, oh, my allegiance is in Notre Dame. He said he's like, and we know his allegiance is USC. And but what do USC fans care about? They care about Notre Dame. Like I don't know how that doesn't come clear for him that the Notre Dame rivalry is very important to USC fans. And then obviously, I think a lot of alumni are upset too, especially at least from kind of doing a bit of research. And then I can obviously talking to Petros confirm that, but still it just shows that USC just should just play the games when it is. In mid-October in South Bend, in the odd years, and end of season for the in the even years. And I know there are things that I like kind of think some of the traditionalist fans at USC are kind of crazy about like no alternate all black jersey or no FCS opponents. I think y'all are a bit crazy on that, but I'm with y'all on the Notre Dame. This game needs to be played. And I guess the one thing maybe I suppose I could switch, but not too bad is maybe you switch the week you played UCLA and Notre Dame. Have UCLA at the end of the year, Notre Dame the week before, but it's got to be the end of the season when it's USC's hosting. And so I just hope, really, I love USC, but I don't want to see that series go away. Especially, I want to get South Bend at some point soon. And then also just the two games, especially the game in 2022 when I was a sophomore. That was an amazing game, one of the most exciting games I've ever seen at the Coliseum. So why would you just want those to go away when it's just such a great series, not just for fans, but I'm sure also the players too. I can't speak for all of them, but just at least the ones that have been around. It's just like you can tell like they don't like Notre Dame, but it's kind of like, but they love playing the game. It's a great rivalry game. It's what makes college football great, I think. And finally, so moving on to that, Jen Cohen, when she spoke with the LA Times last week, talked a bit about revenue sharing and the programs that they're giving money that are getting directly where athletes are getting direct compensation from the athletic department are football, men's basketball, women's basketball, and women's volleyball, which seems a little surprising, which I think might catch some people off guard, but can't say I'm too surprised, especially after having covered Big Ten volleyball media days last month in Chicago, a couple months back. It makes sense because of how much just the Big Ten wants to be at the top of the volleyball hierarchy. And so because of that, especially, I mean, you even heard, I even remember hearing the Ohio State women's volleyball coach mention that volleyball was one of four sports that was getting comp that was part of the House settlement, at least that would be paid directly by the athletic department. So I think it didn't because I heard that, I'm like, okay, that does surprise me, especially how much the Big Ten cares about volleyball after you get past football and basketball. Although in addition to that, there are added scholarships across other sports too, and new 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 scholarships then only count against the cap up to 2.5 million. So programs, even if they aren't getting revenue sharing from the athletic department, they'll still be able to have more scholarships to support more athletes there. And one final thing I did mean to bring up earlier, but forgot, but I do want to mention now is I do want to talk about the news of Kilian O'Connor getting to start at center over getting to be the starting center, especially considering that he was a walk-on, got put on, came in here as a walk-on in fall of 2022, and then got put on scholarship just last February, or yeah, end of February, start of March. So just, yeah, end of February. So because that, just like to see him, get to, beat out Gianre Reed, who was brought in presumably as a starter, but even Reed showed respect for him and just said that it was, somewhere, yeah, even Reed had respect for him. And Reed said at the time, and I quote, "That's a guy I don't mind competing with because he does everything the right way." And I actually interviewed O'Connor for a class project a couple of years ago. It's not public anymore due to the fact that it was for a class. But I remember I asked him, like, as USC is going to Big Ten, what do you hope to, how do you hope to help contribute? And he said, I just hope to, help teach everyone how to play the game right. And just, I think you've just seen how it's paid off. And just, especially because I know him, I'm really happy for him. Just can't wait to see what he does this year. So moving on to women's volleyball, team started the year ranked 21st. and got two wins to kick off the year. They swept Denver. They swept Denver. Uh, they swept Denver 3-0, 28-26, 25-16, 25-20, 20 on Friday night at Galen. That was their first win with Abigail Mullen, the freshman, leading with 13 kills. Mullen and Jolla had leading the way with 11 digs. Reese Messer had 36 assists. Mia Tverdi had 5 blocks, and Messer with the lone team ace. So first set was tight after that. USC was in command for most of the match, which is super impressed with how USC finished. And then on Sunday, the Trojans went to campus of LMU to take on the Lions and beat them 3-1, 23-25, 25-14, 25-13, 25-18. Mullen once again had lead with 14 kills. London Weejay led with 4 aces. Leah Ford had 10 blocks. Reese Messier had 41 assists. And Trubin had 11 digs. So USC started out strong, but then struggled down later in the first set, committing 8 of their 16 service errors in that first set, with the Lions eventually pulling away to win. But after that, USC cleaned it up and dominated the next two before staying in command in a bit more of a tighter fourth set to win. So really the big thing was for USC is just they gotta be better at their serving. Too many service errors. You can get away with that against teams like Denver and LMU, but that's not going to fly, especially once you get two Big Ten play, and even next week with especially Creighton on the list or on the schedule. But yeah, so I've been super impressed with Abigail Mullen at opposite, and then Messier's command of the offense at center, especially since both are freshmen and had their debuts on Friday. And it seems like Abigail Mullen, who's been on campus since last spring, it seems like it's really paying off that she, has been here for a while and has now been able to, learn and just be in the system now for almost really not just, since summer practice. So I think that's really has helped her as she's gotten as she's, been playing more, especially here. And I'm expecting big things for her this week. And Leah Ford, for her efforts, was named the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Week, especially after an impressive not playing on Friday against Denver, but then played the entire match on Sunday at middle blocker. As such as those matches do them being a bit easier, the head coach Brad Keller did seem to opt to try to just see what he had available, see who could play and contribute on the court. So I think it was definitely, you saw, I think, some adjustments there throughout both matches. But I'm definitely looking forward to seeing kind of who kind of moves on and solidifies their spots and where are there still those ongoing battles, because he's Brad Keller is not afraid to make big changes when he sees it necessary based on either someone doing well and then coming in, someone I'm guessing who does well in practice and then steps in and does well in a game and when it comes to the match, or if someone's struggling, he's not afraid to make an adjustment, put someone else in. I've seen it over the years, especially as I've gone to more and more women's volleyball matches. So up next for USC, they host the Trojan Invitational. Friday night, they'll host UC Santa Barbara, who's 2-0 at 7 p.m. And then on Saturday, they'll host University of San Diego at 7 p.m. At 7 p.m. Both those matches will be shown on the Big Ten Network, and both the Gauchos and the Toreros are 2-0 on the year. But then on Sunday, USC will host number 13 Creighton at at 1 p.m. on the Big Ten Network to close out the Invitational. USC has dropped down to start the year at 21, but did drop to 22, probably due to their due to just the caliber of their opponents, but have an opportunity to definitely move up, especially with the matchup against Creighton. And even though the Blue Jays are 1-2, they're still not a team to look out for, especially they did play some tough opponents. And even though UCSB and USD are unranked, these will still be tough matches, especially USD, given head coach Jennifer Petrie has been there a long time and has had a lot of success. And like I said, Creighton might be 1-2, but their two losses came to Penn State and Texas, the last two, the 2024 and 2023 national champions, respectively. And then they beat number 14 Kansas, who also has played a tough non-conference schedule so far. So USC looking for some revenge against Creighton, but definitely I think an exciting but really good weekend of volleyball for this team to really see where they're at. I think this is going to be probably the first good test of a weekend before they have a couple more before they get into the second half of the non-conference schedule. So then we'll move on to men's water polo now, who went 4-0 at the Triton Invitational. Started the year number 2. Will probably likely stay there, I imagine. And on Friday, they beat number 12 UCSD 10-7, with Stefan Bronkovich leading the way with 3 goals, and Bernardo Herzer in the goal had 9 saves. On Saturday, they beat George Washington 23-9. Jack Martin leading with 4 goals. Herzer had 6 goals in one period of work, and Charlie Mills had 11 in the final 3 periods. And then later in the day, they beat number 15 UC Santa Barbara 16-12, with Robert Lopez Duarte and Strong Shahingja Kristic having 4 goals each, and then Mills had 4 saves over the entirety of the game. And then on Sunday to close out, they beat number 10 San Jose State 20-13, with Lopez Duarte and Bronkovich leading with 4 goals each, and Herzer and Mills having 5 saves each, with Herzer playing minute 45 into the third period before being pulled. It was a good weekend for the team to really evaluate everyone. I think you saw a lot of guys play and score, especially as I looked through the box scores this weekend. And up next, USC has three games, 2 of which will count. They'll host Long Beach State, who is 5-1, on Friday at 5 p.m., and then fall immediately with Junior College Golden West in an exhibition match at 6:30 on right after, and then both games can be watched on overnight.com. Long Beach State and then on Sunday they will go to Malibu to face Pepperdine at 1 p.m. That can be watched on ESPN Plus. So Golden West will be a good game to test and see where it runs at and evaluate options. And this will be Golden West's first game of the year. But both Long Beach State and Pepperdine, I think, will be tough games for the Trojans, especially since both have only dropped 1 game so far and have so far looked pretty strong, are looking pretty good. So I think these are good tests for the Trojans. So best of luck to men's water polo this weekend. Then our final sport of the day is cross country. And they took part in the Waves Invitational up in Malibu last week on Friday. And they finished, and due to only having 4 runners participate, they did not place, but still had individual finishes, with Holly Prest leading with a time of 14:19.7 to finish 13th in her first collegiate meet. And Jacqueline Duarte came in 17th with a time of 14:27.0. And then Haley Spoden finished 25th with 14:41.1. And Isabella Duarte went 14:46.7, finished 28th. So up next, cross country will go to Riverside to take part in the UC Riverside Invitational on September 27th. So we will tune into them later when it comes closer to that time. And then finally, we have our newest segment of Behind the Caution Tape, which I'm encouraging everyone to get involved with. It is the question segment. And I think this is a good idea, especially because I want to, be able to see, what do you, the Trojan family, what do you want to know about USC athletics? What can I try to solve for you? So because of that, I'm super excited to announce this segment. So I got 2 questions this week. The first is from Bryce Lee Photo, who asked, what do you think the toughest games for USC football are? And I'm going to say, I think, so hi Bryce, I think the toughest 2 are going to be, I think, at Notre Dame and at Oregon. Sure, Notre Dame lost and Oregon played an FCS opponent, but I think both Dan Lanning at Oregon and Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame, I think, have done a terrific job are both heading to their 4th years, and they've done terrific jobs just keeping those programs just running really smoothly, and they've had lots of success. Both made the college football playoff last year. Notre Dame going all the way to the final before losing to Ohio State. The same Buckeyes team that beat Oregon in the Rose Bowl in the quarterfinals. So I think overall you're just going to see those teams, especially they're both on the road too, in really tough road environments, both in South Bend, as I've heard lots of people say who've been there, especially with it being a rivalry game too. I think that's going to be a tough game for USC. And then Autzen Stadium, I've been there. That was, as I've said, and I stand by this, that was the most hostile environment I've ever been in my life. I mean, it was cool, but it was still super hostile if you were not a Ducks fan. And I've heard that's why that, and it made complete sense to me that that's why that is one of the toughest places to play in the country is Autzen Stadium. So I think for those reasons, I'm not saying USC can't win, especially if we continue to see impressive results as the season progresses. But those are going to be two tough games for the Trojans that I think are probably the toughest to answer your question there, Bryce. The other question is from Rep 23. It's from Eric Prado at Rep underscore 23. So who asked me what game I'm looking forward to most. So Eric, I'm assuming you're asking about football, and I think the game that I'm most looking forward to on the football schedule this year is UCLA. I love that. I just love just across all sports the USC UCLA rivalry. I think it's just one of the greatest rivalries across in college sports, not just for football but for everything. And so for those reasons, I'm really excited about that UCLA game. It doesn't matter. For me, it's just like I just love just seeing when USC and UCLA, just because of the rivalry. It doesn't matter how the teams are doing. The intensity is always there. And yeah, I think we've seen it kind of every year. Just both teams come out really motivated, especially like last year in the Rose Bowl, even with USC's season, more just where what bowl game, hinging on what bowl game they were going to go to. Even just the fact that pretty much they could eliminate UCLA from getting to play in a bowl game was still satisfying and just pretty much secure their own bowl future, secure their own bowl game. So I think for those reasons, I've always enjoyed the UCLA game. So Eric, to answer your question, UCLA, fours down, baby. So finally, we'll move on to how I did this week. So yeah, actually before I go on that, just make sure, yeah, if you got questions, I'll be posting out question boxes every Sunday on both my X at CrashLit and on my Instagram story, also at CrashLit. So be sure to follow me there, and I'll when I post those boxes, just leave them. Or if you have anything else, just reach out to me, DM me, and I'll if it's questions about it, I'll do my best to answer them best I can, see what I can find out for you. So yeah, I'm happy to answer whatever I can about all things USC athletics. Doesn't just have to be football. So please, bring on the questions. Happy to try to answer. So yeah, last week I went 3-0-1 at sporting events. Actually, oh wait, and before actually I did realize I forgot to talk about soccer, so I'm gonna come back to that real quick. So yeah, USC is number 4 after last week and is now 3-0-1 on the season after having a scoreless draw against Portland on Thursday. So despite the draw, Bellegress continuing to impress in the net and ending the night with 3 saves. She also threw me this cool soccer ball that I think was really cool, especially because she was like, "It's coming to you, Crash." So that was kind of cool, especially to see, just talk about that. So shout out Bella, thanks again for the souvenir from the game. And up next for the Trojans, they'll host number 1 Stanford, who's 5-0 on the year, on Thursday at 6:30 on the Big Ten Network. So this will be Stanford's first game away from Palo Alto, but they'll be coming in just ready to play because they've been blowing out all their opponents all year. And I think this is both teams' toughest match yet. The USC is going to need to play its best game to try and beat just the undefeated Cardinal, who's 5-0. And I think USC's got a really good chance. They may move down due to tying Portland, but this is a game that'll definitely be able to re-solidify them as one of the top teams in the country, especially if they can take down the Cardinal. It's definitely an exciting game there on Thursday. So back to this. So I went 3-0-1 last week. So is the tie for soccer, the 2 wins for volleyball, and then the beat down of football. So I'm 4-0-1 on the school year now, 3-15, 119, and 1 all time. So my plans are this week, based on if everything works out, is I'll be at soccer on Thursday, women's volleyball all weekend, and possibly late on Saturday, though, due to football. Just there is going to be a bit of overlap, most likely. And then possibly check out men's water polo on Friday as well. So as you know, I announce everything that I'm either will or possibly going to here on on Mondays. And if you're wondering for sure, be sure to just stay up to date. Follow me on Instagram at CrashLit. I will post the game day graphics for the games that I will be attending in person. So be sure to keep an eye out for that if you're wondering if I'm there. But yeah, definitely happy to chat anytime. That's going to do it for us here on Behind the Caution Tape. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to like, be sure to follow, subscribe to this podcast wherever you get them. That means the world to me. Sure, leave a comment, like, subscribe, leave a rating. And just, yeah, definitely share it with your friends, especially if they are Trojan fans, because this is a place where I can, provide it. It's where I try to, talk about everything that's going on and then also try to have some good guests. So every Monday I have the Monday rundowns and also work on getting some more good interviews in on the way, which I will announce as I get them confirmed. I'll see y'all next week and fight on.